This podcast is brought to you in part by Magical Mystery Camp, coming to Big Indian, New York, just 2.5 hours from New York City, the week of Paul McCartney's 84th birthday, June 16th through the 19th, featuring a number of special guests, including the Fab Four, as well as singer-songwriter musicians Martin Sexton, Gail Ann Dorsey, Cindy Cash Dollar, and more. For more information, check out magicalmysterycamp.com/something.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of ShopPay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this SATB special, my conversation with musician, performing, and recording artist Martin Sexton. He's out of Syracuse, New York. If you don't know the name, his music is described as sort of this rootsy Americana, folk to some, but it blends really all kinds of things, including R&B, including country, including, you name it, rock for sure. And he's recorded 10 albums, including one live at the Fillmore album. And as well, his music has been heard in some TV shows and films. So he's been around, and currently he's been doing this one-man performance of Abbey Road live for people, the entire album start to finish. And that's what brought him to my attention and why I decided to have a conversation with him, just to sort of get the insight of a working musician taking on such a revered work and what he is able to do with it to make it work as a solo performer. The other thing to know is that he will be one of the guests at Magical Mystery Camp in June this summer in the Catskills, Big Indian, New York. So that is, in fact, sort of the windup of this particular phase. He will probably be performing Abbey Road for the last time there. But it's in this cool Beatles-soaked environment with presenters and music and classes, discussion, interaction. So it's the perfect place for him. Anyway, this episode and the podcast is sponsored by Magical Mystery Camp. Go to magicalmysterycamp.com for further information. It was interesting to get Martin's take on things, including his Beatle fandom, what albums he gravitates toward, and what he is drawn from the Beatles as a working musician for the last 30 years. So here it is, my conversation with Martin Sexton. You're known for producing music that doesn't fit comfortably in one particular label. You started out, people called you folk, but I listen to your stuff. I hear blues, gospel, Americana, whatever that means, country, R&B, and rock. So it speaks to a great openness, this sort of cultural omnivore absorbing influences. What was the earliest music you can recall listening to?
So I got to say, cultural omnivore. I dig that, man. Very cool.
A guest said that on a show recently, and I've been using it ever since.
Dig that. I'm like a bear, like foraging through the forest of music.
Yes.
You know?
Uh-huh.
Man, I don't know what I call myself, man. I mean, when people ask, I just say I'm a singer-songwriter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Got
I've
some
seen in
soul
an
to it.
interview you call yourself a soul singer, but not soul like we think of, and even though you recorded for Atlantic, but soul in a much broader sense. Maybe you can lay that out, your definition of that.
Well, it comes from my soul. I mean,
Right.
it's not an Otis Redding thing, although he's definitely in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And Stevie Wonder was certainly probably my biggest vocal influence, but and of course the Beatles later on. But I don't know, man. Describing what I do, I think Frank Zappa said it best when he said, "Talking about music is like dancing about architecture."
Yes, exactly right. Who wants to talk about it? But to that point, Music, I think this is my own opinion, and I'm sure it's shared by other people, and I'm just trying to articulate it just so. I think there's a power to music to move people and convey something, reaching the spirit with more immediacy than other art forms, say film or books, and that the Beatles, to use one great example, were exceptional at tapping into this. Is that something you have found in your life?
Yeah, for sure. I see myself as a messenger. Um, I'm carrying the message, and it's my job to bring the song to folks. And I've always thought that music was a very motivating force, and it's my job. It's incumbent upon me to deliver it the best I can and to try to unify folks, especially in this divided world we're in. I always try to bring stuff that's going to bring folks together, that's going to remember our humanity, that's going to remember that we're all really brothers and sisters sharing this earth. And I think that's what music is for. It's a unifying force that lets us see the light within one another. Namaste means I see the light within you. And music has a lot to do with that for me. And the Beatles, man, when I was a kid, I mean, when I discovered them, decades after their demise, it lit that light under me and started me a brewing to to get on this journey that I'm on.
That's a great way of laying out something that I think you're not alone in terms of the Beatles being this, in addition to all the great music they made, being a motivational force that inspired a hell of a lot of people across every kind of demographic and genre to want to produce art themselves. Even if they couldn't quite articulate it in those words, they were moved as an
Hmm.
audience or wanting to create. So, as far as your own journey goes, what was it? Do you recall a specific moment of music reaching you and moving you that way that made you want to try your hand at it?
Yes. When I was probably in fifth or sixth grade, and this is the early '80s. So it's well after the Beatles had done their thing. I'm 10th of 12 kids, so I've got a lot of older sibs. And I went down to the basement, and there's this box of old 45s and LPs, and none of them had cases or covers. They're all scratched up. And I would take the 45s and go through, like, there's some Barbara Streisand, there's a Helen Reddy. And I would take these 45s and I wouldn't listen to them. I'd take them up to the athletic field and I would chuck them into the wind. And it was amazing, but they would fly. I don't recommend this today, but I've made peace with Mother Earth since then. But one day I came upon this big LP with a big old green apple on it. Said Beatles Abbey Road, and it's all scratched up and dusty. And I've heard of these guys. I'll play that record. And I played it. And that was the day that I first heard all those songs. And I'd say that day and the day I played my older brother's Frampton Comes Alive album, and I heard that crowd on the Frampton Live album in the headphones. So they look like your headphones now. And I think those were the days that's definitely, I want to do this. I knew I could sing. I would sing out in the schoolyard and kids would gather around and stuff. So I knew, like, hey, man, that's when I started playing guitar at about 13 years old.
What were you singing when you'd sing in the schoolyard? What kind of tunes were
I
you
was
getting good
singing
with?
Stevie Wonder tunes, and I was rattling off these sort of, Cheech and Chong skits, and the nuns, I was Catholic, the nuns would come out, and all the kids would gather around, and they'd be, like, clapping, on the 1 and the 3, and and, so I'd go from a Stevie Wonder tune to a Cheech and Chong skit, and, of course, that was quite vulgar for a little Catholic boy to be going on, but some nuns would come up with their yardsticks and break it up, Sexton. That'll be enough for you. And, but it was just that feeling of kids around me and, like, attention, like 10 to 12. I probably relished in that, attention. I probably didn't get much as a kid, but yeah, that's sort of the start of what I do.
That's interesting. I haven't heard anybody lay a music career at the feet of Cheech and Chong before,
Yeah,
but that's pretty
yeah, oh man.
interesting.
Oh, hey, man, the cops are behind this, man. No, don't look around, man. I want you to start getting rid of the stuff, man. I'm getting rid of it, man. No, not that way, man. Eat it, man. Oh, man, I got a whole pocket full, man. Oh, man. Oh, hey, man. I used to love that stuff.
Oh my god, yeah, you've got me revisiting "Earache My Eye" and, "Black
Dig it,
Lassie" and
yeah.
all that stuff, yeah. Where were you picking up on this stuff? Was it, like, older siblings that had this?
Yeah, my older brothers have the Cheech and Chong, you know.
Okay.
Who is it? It's Dave, man. Open up. I got the stuff with me. Dave's not here. My brothers had that late
Mm,
70s stuff.
okay,
I was in high school in the 80s, so I kinda caught everything a generation late. I really didn't like the music of the '80s when it was happening. I ended up singing it all for money later in the
mhm,
'80s. Aha, Tears for Fears, Chaka Khan, all that stuff. But, that was a great 101 for singing, you know, when you gotta hit that high note and "Take on Me," that's a good, practice for singing later in
sure.
life.
Nail that, you're set.
Yeah.
That's great. So, at what point in you're absorbing all this music and you're performing it for people, so clearly you've got the performing bug. At what point did you recognize, "Hey, I've got something to say too. I want to try to write"? Because I'm thinking if you're that big a fan of music, it can go two ways. Either you're so intimidated, all this great stuff's been written, it's out there, who am I? Or you're like, "I think I can do this," which is
Yeah.
how the Beatles hit a lot of people.
Yeah, looking back, I wish I kind of, I don't know, studied songwriting like from the get go. But it was funny. I just started writing things that were just sucked. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and it's so discouraging, man. Like you don't songs just don't like happen. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard to write a song that doesn't just suck. And so I I would start writing about stuff that I knew a little about, and it would just come out, you know, stupid. And um, I would sound like kind of like Jethro Tull for a while in the beginning, or sound like, you know, Van Halen or who knows what. But then I know what it was. When I started singing in the streets, when I moved to Boston, I cut the mullet and I started singing in the streets and subways. And then I started listening to guys like John Hyatt and Chris Whitley and Jeff Buckley and John Prine and all the more folky, rootsy guys. And that's when
Mhm.
I started really sort of studying like, okay, looks like there's two verses and then there's the chorus and then there's a verse and then there's chorus and then there's a little bridge. Like I kind of got the structure of like, okay, what these masters were doing. And so, yeah, that was the early 90s, I think, when I started really writing decent songs that I would consider decent.
And you're describing artists that didn't easily fit into a particular niche either,
Yeah.
like yourself. They're
Right.
absorbing everything,
Yeah.
and that's something that's pretty manifest in your music that even when you're doing, like I've seen bits of you performing songs from Abbey Road, and the amazing thing and this is the power of Beatles, for as long as I've been doing this, is that any really solid artist can take a Beatles song and do it a completely different way, and the song is still there.
Yeah.
Like, I think of the first time and you might have had the same reaction, I was a young child when I heard Richie Havens doing "Here Comes the Sun,"
Hmm.
and I might have heard his version before I heard the Beatles version actually, because it
Funny.
was on AM radio,
Right.
and they sound nothing like each other, but the song is still there, and it's incredible. It's like, wow, you could strip this thing down to the bare frame, and there's still something there that's gonna reach people. That's power. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Totally. Yeah. That was a great version. I think he started Woodstock with that.
Yeah, apparently, I looked into it, he did versions of Strawberry Fields and stuff. He had an affinity for Beatles for sure, but through the Richie Havens filter, which made them sound different and reach you in a different way. Maybe you don't like the Baroque production of the Strawberry Fields that the Beatles produced, but there's something just a guy and his guitar, it'll still hit you. So
Right. Yeah. John Lennon gave me that license to just write kind of gibberish, you know, like, um, he would just have these songs like, no one those lines in Strawberry Fields,
mhm,
like,
"No One I Think Is in My Tree."
yeah, but, you know, I know, and it's a dream. Like, what the hell is that? That's like something you just made up after you got out of bed and had a sip of coffee, you know what I mean? Like, I call that the John Lennon school, so I started writing like that, and late a couple albums in, I had a little more of that dreamy, nonsensical, maybe poetic license kind of lyric writing.
Stream of
And
consciousness, whatever
yeah,
words come out of your mouth,
exactly. And
and
it's
people will
and
find
he
their meaning from it.
yeah, and he always encouraged that in interviews. I would study him closely. And,
Mhm.
I love that, and it's you just you hit the record button on the recorder, on the iPhone now, it used to be a little dictaphone, and just kinda make stuff up and, "Oh, that sounds good," and you kinda build on that, and I could think it allows the editor to take a break, that editor in my head will always be like, "That's nonsense, you can't say that, it doesn't mean anything," or, "That's not correct grammar,"
Yeah,
But
you
it's
can't
not an
overthink it.
yeah, it's not an English lesson, it's art.
Right, exactly. That's something you learned, you're saying, more or less from John Lennon in terms of his use of language that might not have a literal meaning.
Mhm.
As we know from Paul's 10,000 tellings of, "Hey, Jude, the movement you need is on your shoulder."
Yeah, the whole John thing, right? "No,
Uh-huh.
no, no, keep it, keep it."
I know what it means.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
The movement, man, the movement, it's on your shoulders.
Well, that's some really beautiful insight to key in on as an aspiring artist, that sometimes just the sound of the words and not necessarily a literal meaning is going to convey something of import to you as you're speaking it and singing it, and to anybody taking it in and being caught up in the whole sound of everything, the way you're singing it and the music that's going with it and all that stuff. So it's a pretty insightful thing to pick up on, because I think we're sort of conditioned to think of pop music as a very, very highly competitive industry. That's really what it is, where you're battling for the ears of listeners to make things stick and be catchy and earwormy and all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And this is sort of anti that, but I think it reaches a deeper level in the beholder for sure.
Yeah. I wasted so much time trying to, I don't know, write tunes that would get played on the radio. You know what I mean? Like, gotta hit the chorus at 40 seconds. The intro should be about 12 seconds. The formulaic thing. I mean, there's a place for it, and I do still keep that in mind sometimes. Like, if I'm writing, like, okay, this is probably the single. So, this is the one we'll go for. But it's just funny how you spend so much time, trying to do that's the other side of the brain, that's more of the math and trigonometry side of the brain, as opposed to the flowing, artistic, creative part of the brain.
What you're describing, you could see both of those sides fused in the end product of Beatles, because clearly they very much were wired into gotta get on the radio, gotta have a hit, gotta engage millions of people. But for John especially, it has to mean something, or it has to be something natural and unforced. And do you, as an artist yourself, as a performer, and as a songwriter, marvel at how they were able to pull that trick off over and over and over again?
Yeah, I do marvel at it. They just work so hard in the beginning, especially. I mean, I don't understand how a group can just tour constantly, like in the early 60s, constant touring and putting out like 5 albums a year. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. I don't understand. I think they just nonstop. They're always writing, always working, always writing, getting interviews. Like, I think John and Paul definitely challenged each other, and I know from my own, writing history that I definitely am more productive when I write with someone else, when I have that someone there to challenge me and to I can write a couple songs in a day if I have a guy with me who's good. But then as they got more successful, they kinda just they were the high watermark of music, and so they could kinda do whatever they wanted, like, they could put a 7-minute single out with "Hey Jude," or they could write songs like "No one I think is in my tree, but I know and it's a dream." You know what I mean? And I know people who actually prefer the more structured, traditional kind of song structure of the early Beatles as opposed to their later stuff. I always was more a fan of the later stuff, personally, from Revolver on, basically. And then, of course, all the just the wonderful magical engineering techniques that they pioneered with their engineers and George Martin. I mean, they invented this stuff that was used every day after that. Just the idea of having like a distorted guitar or a just kind of distorted voice or like a chorused guitar or like all this stuff was basically them at Abbey Road, asking the engineers to break the rules. You know what I mean? Like, hey, that's that. Yeah, stuff would be in the red, and they'd be like, "That's cool." And these guys literally, they wore like white lab coats. The engineers back then, and they were very much into very English into the rules. But I guess at a certain point, they realized this is the Beatles, and whatever they say is what we do.
They'd established that clout as
Hmm.
people that could move units that,
Yeah,
okay, we're getting a blank check from this point on. And that pursuit of technology to capture what you're hearing in your head, that is new ground. Nobody's done this yet, but we're going to figure out what it is. What it is I'm hearing in my head. That's not it. Keep trying, keep digging deeper. ADT, okay, now you're in the ballpark, that sort of stuff.
yeah,
Backwards tapes, yeah,
yeah,
got it. Yeah,
totally.
amazing. Do you find that do you apply that in your own recordings? Have you gone down that path of, "I'm hearing something in my head, I gotta figure out how to do this," and go down that rabbit hole of, "How do I get that sound?"
Have done that, and half the time it comes out contrived,
Mm.
and half the time it works. Like, yeah, I definitely have gone for things, and I don't know if it's because it's harder than it seems, and I'm not all that, or it is attainable, and I can do that simply by a certain fuzz pedal and a certain tone on my Les Paul with the tone turned down and the using the rhythm pickup and like it's funny. It's like anything, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
And trial and error. And I definitely have gotten better at knowing my limits. Like, no, I can't play drum kit on this track. Like, I'll leave that to the drummer. You know what I mean? Because I like to do everything. I tend to play everything on my to play. I do the. Paul is my favorite bass player, and so I play bass. I do some keys. I get guitars, percussion. I'll do like choruses of vocals
Mhm.
behind me and stuff. But drums kit, I got to leave that to the drummer. So I know that from trying to do it and it was okay, but it kind of sucked. So just leave that to a great drummer.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're trying to capture. I
Yeah,
listen to you listen to Pete Townsend demos, and he's not what you would call a great drummer, but there's a charm to what he does. It's
dig
almost
it.
like the
Yeah.
first McCartney album.
Right. Yeah, and it's amazing. You think of Paul, like, playing all that stuff, playing drums and bass and guitar and keys and singing and all that. It's kind of amazing. Like,
Mhm.
Dear I always thought I would listen to the White Album and I'd be like, "Dear Prudence, wow, what a great drum thing Ringo's doing there." You know what I mean? But it's not Ringo, it's actually Paul doing all that
Right.
jazzy stuff.
Yeah, the coda is incredible on that, and
Mhm.
that's something
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
mystified Beatle people forever.
Yeah.
Like, what
You know
is
what I
that?
wanna know is what I'm not clear on is who actually plays bass on "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." Is it Paul? I haven't figured that out yet. I'm sure it's very I could probably Google it right now.
Yeah. Well, have you ever listened to the Rock Band stems, the sort of deconstructions of the recordings?
I saw us, I've seen some specials on that, and I've seen them like, isolate the
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't heard the bass.
Uh-huh.
And while my guitar it's got that sort of crunchy, distorted thing going on, but it's not quite a fuzz. It's just big and bad. Because I always thought Paul kind of played bass on everything, but no, actually, John plays bass on some. George plays bass on like Joan was quizzical, studied metaphysical
Yeah.
science. That's
Maxwell.
George playing bass, and John
Mhm.
doesn't even play on that track because he didn't like it. Uh, George called it fruity.
Yeah. The big ukulele fan called another song "Fruity."
Yeah, it's funny.
Uh-huh. Well, it's interesting when you listen to the breakdowns of "Wow My Guitar" because I had Jack on the show one time, and we discussed this because through Rock Band, you can hear the sound of a 12-string guitar doubling the bass in parts
Dig
of
it.
that. Yeah. It is so
On While My Guitar, you can hear a 12 string doubling the bass?
yes. I'll
Really?
send it to you.
Like,
It's like,
way back? Way,
uh,
like
until Rock Band happened, we didn't even know it was there.
yeah.
But it's there. It's like, first of all, you're taking the time to arrange and figure out how to play and then record with precision something that most people will never ever hear. Again, to the point of chasing a sound you hear in your head
Yeah.
and being able to make it work, but to what end? I don't know. Is it a lesser record without that in there?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I maybe that just is why I always remember the melody of that bass line so much because
Hmm.
it's bolstered probably
Yeah.
in 3 octaves, like the bass itself, and then the guitar has the high and low octave, the 12 string. That that could help. That's neat. I have
Yeah. It's
definitely done
accentuated.
trick. I have. You're reminding me that I have done tricks like that have been successful, like little idiosyncratic things that you wouldn't notice, but that's there. That just kind of accentuates something.
What track? So listeners could check it out.
Oh, I'm thinking on my Seeds record. Um, what track is it? Right where you belong. It's called Right Where You Belong. And I do this whole radio. It's a total Beatle thing where I put songs together with a radio, and there's an acoustic in there, and there's a little like dobro, and you can't really. It's hard for me to explain, but it's right where you belong. Or no, no, no. It is right where you belong, but even more so, it's on a track called "I'm Here for You." On the middle eight, I've got a mellotron and all this stuff going on that you don't really hear. And the mellotron again, I got from Beatles, although everyone used them. But
So it's like a touch of psychedelia in this
yes,
break. What you're
yeah,
reminding me of, do you know that record by Sagittarius, My World Fell Down?
not familiar with that.
Okay, from '67. Yeah, it's got this whole interlude breakdown of all these random sounds coming in. And Clive Davis hated it so much, even though the single was successful, he cut it out of the album version, which is kind of
Is that right?
backwards. Yeah,
Wow,
it's just a weird thing, but
what a
but
trick!
it's a beautiful effect when you can pull it off. And so
Yeah.
when you just what you're describing there, it's like, wow, he's like riding that wave. That's a cool thing.
That's one thing I love to do that I got from Beatles is I'll instead of a song ending and another one beginning, I'll tie them together with, a crossfade with, crickets or tree frogs or ambient sounds, and that's right off of Abbey Road, side B. Or I'll do little shticks with like, you're tuning a radio and in the world today. And then the next song starts, like, or the backwards, like, yeah, and we go. Yeah.
That's cool. I love that, what you're describing. I'm thinking of the beginning of Back to the Egg album with the radio tuning and all the backward stuff certainly is manifest.
Very good.
So, what you described as far as your Beatle taste goes is Revolver onwards, the experimental years. So, really, it
Yeah.
speaks to a great diversity in sound in the service of these great songs that they just
Mhm.
reached a sweet spot as writers at that point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's kind of when they started first doing the loop stuff and the backwards guitar and George, he had gotten the sitar earlier, but yeah, I love that whole and Paul didn't get enough credit for being the one who was more like in the thick of it, living in the city in London
Mhm.
and actually hanging out with all the experimental folks, and really getting all those ideas while John was hanging out with Cynthia in the suburbs for the most part. Paul didn't
Tripping
get it.
balls.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
While Paul the straight Beatle is the counterculture Beatle.
Yeah, he was the one going to the clubs and really soaking it all in, apparently. Even like Joan was quizzical, studied pataphysical
Yeah.
science. Like that was some thing. Pataph pataph studying pataphysical science. That was a thing, like
Yes.
for a minute. Like
Right.
and he
I can't
got it
tell you what,
because he
but
was yeah, he was there at he would
uh-huh.
go to the lectures on it or whatever.
Uh-huh. John was one that picked up on trepanning. You know what that
Yeah.
is? D
Trepanning. Tell me what trepanning
drilling
is.
a hole in your head into your
Oh,
skull.
nice.
Right.
Yeah.
He was trying to get Paul to do it with him, and Paul was like, "You first."
Yeah, okay. Any
Uh-huh.
yeah, sure. I'll sit out on that one.
Right. Never quite made it to a song.
Mhm.
So in a way, it's kinda like you coming full circle with that Apple label Beatles album striking you as a child to now going out on the road and performing Abbey Road live. What was the process that led you to that point?
Well, I was process would be this point in my career, I don't have to put out a record every year. And it's been a while since I put something out. 2021 when I put out record called 2020 Vision. And I toured behind it and kind of let, do its thing. Um And then it was time to do something else, and I really didn't have anything written. And I started thinking, well, what if I did like this me solo version of Abbey Road? That could be a cool new thing to bring to the world. And of course, I thought I knew all the songs on it, but I didn't. When I sat down and actually woodshedded and learned the songs, enough to play them in front of a paying audience, that took some doing. But I thought that could be a cool sort of presentation for folks. I've seen other bands doing it where an artist will do, some classic album. And I thought, well, I could do that. So that's kind of where it was born. It was both, hopefully a commercially successful idea meets an artistic paying tribute kind of idea. And it's funny, these tribute acts, I'm so envious. Like these tribute acts are huge. You know what I mean? They go out and they got like 3 buses and tractor trailers and they're filling huge venues and it's like they're singing, Styx or like Journey. You know what I mean? And it's like, damn. So I thought maybe I'll do a little tribute of my own with Abbey Road. And it turned out being like the opening act of the show. I would do Abbey Road set 1, take a break, and then do the Martin Sexton thing for set 2.
So what did you in woodshedding these songs and getting back to what was already familiar on some level, did you learn some things that you weren't aware of before when you're getting into the intricacies of what the Beatles put down?
Yeah. Um, even like something as simple as Here Comes the Sun, you think it's okay, it's Georgian and guitar, but the way he plays it and in his key, I tried it and for the first while I actually did it the way he does it, but I'm just thinking doesn't let me sort of do my thing. So I just kind of dumbed it down a little and kind of just a little more rudimentary, almost like not that Richie Havens dumbed anything down, but he put everything in more of a 3-chord, structure and just riffed on it. And I kind of took a tip from that idea of just kind of countrifying Here Comes the Sun and not trying so hard to get every little or every single riff or every string line or you know what I mean. I'm just a guy and a guitar. I don't have George Martin. I don't have an orchestra and a whole band behind me. So I need to do what's going to work best in the format of a guy on stage with a guitar. And it worked well. Let me do my thing, my sort of thumb being the bass, slapping with my palm, and on we go. Or like, uh, because,
Mhm.
because, sorry, because the world is round, it turns me on. That's like a harpsichord and 9 Beatles, 3 Beatles tripled doing 3-part harmony. And so I can't do that. So you just got to kind of reinvent that into a different, I kind of like, I remember it was like, I just kind of Spanishified it. You know what I mean? I kind of gave it a flamenco kind of thing, like,
Cool.
and it kind of worked. But yeah, you got to reinvent things. If you don't have a whole band, you can't like, try to do everything they do. But anyway, it's been a fun trip so far.
That's great, and I've heard bits of it online, seen bits of it, you're performing it. Yeah, it's something that I would highly recommend to anybody who loves that album or just wants to hear a fresh take on it, hear it with fresh ears. You've got a great way of presenting it that makes you hear the song, no matter how familiar it is to you, a different way, and that's great. And if it's a gateway drug to Martin Sexton's catalog, then God bless. That's great.
Come on in.
Uh-huh,
Come on
right.
in.
So, is this something you'll be doing in, Big Indian at the Magical Mystery Camp?
Yeah, the big Indian thing. That's gonna be fun, man. To do like, because I've never done that type of thing.
Mhm,
Um, and where it's a workshop type environment
mhm.
and you talk like we're talking and how'd you pick this chord and this, you perform it. I'm looking forward to that. And that will probably end up being one of the last times I play the Abbey Road in its entirety, just because that will kind of end the cycle. I've been on it now for a while, and that'll be one of the last performances of me doing the Abbey Road thing. After that, I'm back onto the next Martin Sexton adventure.
Mhm. Now, something I'd read in an interview, it talked about part of, or at least I don't know if it's all the time or some of the time, your writing process where you've got 2 different radios on either side of the computer.
Yeah,
Yeah. Describe that to the listeners and, how you're able to make different stimuli going on work for you to hone in on something.
that's a trick I learned way early on as a young, hungry guy from the folk singer John Gorka. He befriended me. And he's the first guy, like, he bought my tape at a club in Cambridge when I was still playing on the streets, and he brought it to his agent, and they started booking me, and that's probably why I became a folk artist, because I started working with a folk agency early on. So he always told me that tricks like, roll right out of bed and just turn on, press record, and just spew into it, before you have coffee, before anything. And or like play two radios on different stations at the same time. He said it helps turn the editor off. It whacks your brain, like, and it works. It's a good little the little tricks of the trade that one can use to get that nasty editor off, to take a break. So you can start singing, like writing like John Lennon school lyrics, you know?
It's so counterintuitive. You would
Yeah.
think it would just be a mess. It would
Yeah.
overwhelm you and you'd shut down, but instead it's
Yeah.
the opposite.
Yeah, it is funny like that. I mean, there are times basically all I need to write is quiet. I'm right now speaking to you from my place up in the Adirondack Mountains. I'm overlooking a frozen lake and it's quiet. You know what I mean? I get away from the hustle and bustle of home. I'm all alone. There's no one around. That's basically what I need to write. So I come up here to do my writing. It's what I've been up to lately, the past few months, sort of in a writing phase now. And this is where I woodshedded too for the Abbey Road thing.
So what's next? As you wind down the Abbey Road and you've got these songs that are starting to brew, where do you see the rest of the year going?
Well, right now I'm touring. It's like an anniversary kind of tour for my record called Live Wide Open, because it's been 25 years. I can't believe it. So just kind of, touring in celebration of that. And we just pressed it on vinyl. And so and I'm writing at the same time. And I'm going to be recording at the end of summer for the next record. So that's what I'm doing, writing, touring, back on the I've had the whole winter off. It's been amazing. First winter of my life, um, that I haven't toured. I had 3 months of not singing in front of people. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and that's the time of the year to take off if you're
Yeah,
gonna take a time
yeah.
off for sure.
So I hadn't sung in 3 months, and of course, I never practice, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I got back, I had to do some shows in Florida, and, I started in the Florida at Key West Theater just last week, and I'm like, "Am I gonna remember my songs?" Like, "Oh my god," like, but I just figured it's gonna be great. It's like riding a bike. So I got up on stage and boom, riding a bike. It was great.
Well, maybe after this next cycle with the new album and that gets played out in a year and a half or whatever, we can look forward to your Cheech and Chong tribute coming to
There you go,
theaters.
man.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, speaking to them, okay. Hi there, folks. Smoking more now, but getting high less? Try new Acapulco Gold filters. Acapulco Gold, just a stony 3 hits longer. And be sure to save this groovy coupon on the back. How do you think I got this? Out of sight hash pipe. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to what Ashley Roachcliffe of the Jefferson Hair Pie has to say.
They're due for a renaissance, and you might be the
Yeah,
guy to kick it off.
dig it.
There you go. Very
That'll be
cool.
enough out of you, Sexton.
Well, this is great. I'm so glad we finally connected and made this happen, and,
Likewise.
it's been a bunch of fun. So, I'll send you that 12-string isolation of,
Yeah, dude.
yeah, you can check that out.
Dig it. Hey,
Yeah.
Bulldog. One of my favorite bass lines is from Hey Bulldog.
Mhm.
Ba-doo-doo, ba-doo-doo. No, that's everyone's got something to hide except for me and my monkey. Ba-doo-doo, diddle-a-doo, ba-doo-doo-doo, ba-doo-la-doo, and it'll diddle-a-doo, and it'll diddle-a-doo, diddle-a-doo.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
You
But
play
yeah,
bass
Hey
much?
Bulldog, man. Love that.
Yeah.
Yellow
Yeah,
Submarine. I love it all, man. I love the Meet the Beatles from Meet the Beatles to Abbey Road and Let It Be. I'm all in.
sure. And Stevie, that's cool too.
Forget it. Stevie's like I found, one of my older sisters had his double album up in the attic, and boom, forget it.
Yeah, but a great education source for sure.
Mm-hmm. Totally, man. Well, thanks for having me, brother. It's a real pleasure.
I'm Bruce Martin, host of Pit Pass Indy. Each week, I go behind the scenes of the NTT IndyCar Series and introduce our listeners to the biggest stars of IndyCar, which features the Indianapolis 500 as its cornerstone event. The men and women that compete in IndyCar may be the bravest athletes in all of sport, as danger lurks around every corner. They are able to look danger in the eye without flinching. That is why the NTT IndyCar Series features the best racing on the planet. Join me every week as we talk to the stars of IndyCar, including the legends of the Indianapolis 500 on Pit Pass Indy from Evergreen Podcast.